and my dear friends, myself Sehba Zaheer, PG Scholar first year. Today I want to express a few words in front of you all about the great celebration of independence called Azadi Amrit Mahatsav. While celebrating this Mahotsav, we Indians will once again turn the pages of our history is highly commendable. Now, I will be speaking on what good did the British do for India during the Raj. Without British rule, there wouldn't have been a political union called India. The East India Company was created in 1600 to cash in on trading with India, which at the time accounted for more than a quarter of all the trade in the world. It soon realized, however, that its ambition would be better served with a permanent presence in the country and from then on the trade took off. As the company's man grew prosperous, they began dreaming of expanding their territory and found little opposition. In some hundred or so years, through a series of conquests and some clever politicking, the company created a rival empire on the subcontinent among the already warring ones, such as the Maratha, Mughal, and Avar. Today the argument that had it not been for the British, those rival factions could not have coalesced into a single entity. This argument stands on two pillars. First, that the British created the idea of a political union called India. Second, that they provided Indians the tools and institutions needed to hold the union together and run it. The first one fall when you consider history, Indian epics such as the Ramayana, which culminate in Prince Ram battle with the Devon king of Lanka, describe India as a single cultural entity. Even in reality, under Emperor Ashoka about 300 BCE, large part of the subcontinent enjoyed cultural and administrative unity. When people of the region traveled to foreign lands, like those performing the Hajj, the host considered the travelers, regardless of their religion, to be Hindi, Hind being the Persian Arabic name for river Sindhu or Indus. The second pillar collapses when you consider what the British did to India. In their entire 200-year rule, they made up no more than 0.05% of the population, and yet for most of that period, no Indian was allowed to join the Indian civil service, in part because the British could not bear to take order from a brown man. When they were finally admitted, no direct racism was installed, high scores in the civil service examination were accused of cheating, for how else could brown men do so well? The few who served the cheating charge then faced discrimination, back home by being barred from the gentleman club of the district they governed. In fact, Britain's policy was not to unite but to divide and rule. Under the British, the Hindu caste system became more rigid and communalized, particularly those between Hindu and Muslim. Even now there was the application of that singular ethos clearer than when on their way out, the colonialists partitioned the subcontinent into India and Pakistan. The British gave India democracy, a free press, and the rule of law. However, strongly they denied to Indians, as they had to Americans before 1776, the rights of Englishmen. The British did instill sufficient dose of the ethos of democracy into their former colonies. That will outlive their true age. But the actual history of British rule does not suggest this was either policy or practice. A democracy cannot function without a free press and just law. Neither truly existed under the Raj. The British were the first to establish newspapers in India, catering to a small English educated elite first and large audiences in the vernacular language later. However, alarmed by their proliferation, the East India Company passed the censorship of the Press Act in 1799, subjecting all newspapers to scrutiny before publication. In 1807, all other kinds of publication too were brought under this rule. Once speaking by the above, and we restrict adherence to the law. Not being insisted on over time, Indians continued with the enterprise. By 1875, there were some 475 newspapers in the subcontinent, mostly owned and edited by Indians. Alarm bell rang again, bringing another round of censorship in the form of the Vernacular Press Act of 1878 and the Revised Press Act of 1910. Under the later published were required to provide a hefty security deposit which they would forfeit if the publication carried inflammatory or abusive article. The racism of the British own press was not subject to the same restrictions. Surely, though you can't deny that the British gave us railways, tea, cricket, and the English language. Yes, they did, but as you have guessed, the theme, they were all unintended gifts. Railways, the British built the railways primarily for themselves, using their own technology and forcing Indians to buy British equipment. Each mile of the Indian railway constructed cost 9 times as much as the same in the US and twice that in difficult and less populated Canada and Australia. The bill was footed by Indian taxpayer and British investors who received a guaranteed return on their capital. Flight charges were dirt cheap and Indians who travelled third class paid for expensive tickets. Tea, the British desire to end their dependence on Chinese tea prompted them to set up plantation in India. Following many failed attempts, they managed to find a local version that worked. For this, the British fattened vast forest districts where tribals who lived there of their right and then paid Indian laborers only to cultivate the cleared area. Once the tea was ready, it was shipped off to Britain or sold internationally. The little bit left in India was too expensive until the Great Depression when weak global demand finally let Indians enjoy the delight of the trade. Cricket. Yes, the British brought it to us, but they did not sow in the expectation that we would defeat them one day at their own game, or that a filmmaker would win an Oscar nomination for an improbable tale about a motley bunch of illiterate villagers testing their colonial overload at a fictional 19th century match. English language. The British made it absolutely clear that it was only taught to serve their own purpose. Lord Macaulay wrote, "We must do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern. A class of persons, Indians in blood and color, but English in taste and opinion, in moral and in intellect. The Indian sees the English language and turned it into an instrument for our own liberation was to get credit not by British design. The upshot of the empire, what had once been one of the richest and most industrialized economies of the world, which together with China accounted for almost 75% of world industrial output in 1750, had been reduced by the degradation of imperial rule to one of the poorest, most backward, illiterate and diseased societies on earth by the time of independence in 1947. Inglorious Empire shows in full glory how the British and created divisions among its people. Worse still, there has been no formal apology for what the empire did on its subject. Instead, there is rising nostalgia for the empire and nationalism surge in a country that is now 3 ranks below India in the size of its economy. Thank you.